Can the Star Wars universe be utilised to teach us about youth mental health? Since it's May the 4th, I wanted to share with you a workshop that I created a few years ago. For those of you who don't know me, hi, I'm Jamie, I'm a human-centric innovator. I work between disparate fields and disciplines, looking for the fundamental connections between them. So a few years ago, I was training as a youth mental health first aid instructor, and I was set the task over one evening of developing a 10-minute session to be facilitated to teachers and youth workers about psychosis. I know that the best learning is memorable, so I decided to take a creative approach by leveraging Star Wars to explain psychosis. All I can promise is this is going to be different. I hope you feel that I've got the tone just about right. I only had an evening to put this together, so if you're a PowerPoint connoisseur, you are going to be disappointed with the production value. But stick with me, trust the process, everything might not seem connected, but it will be. We are going to go through a case study of someone that we all likely know, but we're going to look through a new lens. The case study that we're going to utilise to facilitate the discussions in this video uses a bit of analysis from an organisation called Broadcast Thought. They are an advocacy group that seeks to educate the public about mental ill health through fictional characters of comic book or sci-fi variety. So, in this video, we're going to be looking at the mental health of our young person, Mr. Anakin Skywalker. Don't worry, for anyone who is not familiar with the Star Wars universe, you don't have to have any information or knowledge on that subject to participate in this video or to enjoy the content of this video. At the risk of coming across as a typical millennial, I'm going to use animated GIFs and memes to be able to help highlight the journey that we're talking about. And the way this is going to work is I'm going to read some statements about our young Mr. Skywalker, and then at certain points I'm going to stop to ask questions, the answers of which you can put into the comments. So let's get started. Here is our young Anakin Skywalker. A little bit about Anakin's background. He was raised by his mother without a father. Until the age of 10, he grew up on the breadline as part of a disadvantaged community where he was considered property. A teacher noticed that Anakin was exceptionally gifted and recommended that he attended an institution for gifted children. His mother thought that this could be a great opportunity for Anakin, so she gave her permission for him to attend a private boarding school on a scholarship. Initially, Anakin suffered a lot of separation anxiety from leaving his mother, and this was soon followed by the death of a father-like figure. Now, the Jedi Temple on Coruscant might be the central institution for enlightenment in the galaxy, but one thing they are not sensitive to is mental health issues. Given what we know about Anakin, what are some of the considerations his new legal guardian and the Jedi Order as the institution with a duty of care for him should be asking? Here's a couple of questions that I think are important. What are some of the mental health challenges that Anakin might be facing? And should we be encouraging early interventions at this point to support him? Leave your thoughts in the comments. At his new school, teachers noticed that Anakin was exceptionally determined, but often got upset when he couldn't do something. He struggled with authority figures. He often broke the rules and very frequently engaged in reckless behaviours. Despite these outbursts, he was generally well liked and the majority of the time excelled in his lessons. It was noted that he was prone to occasional outbursts of anger and he struggled with his identity. There are aspects of how Anakin is showing up in this world that might give us some indications that he has some form of psychosis. Things like impulsivity, rage and anger management issues, abandonment issues, crises of identity, dissociative events, and illusions of invincibility. However, there are some considerations about his age that we need to think about. We generally wouldn't give a diagnosis for psychosis to someone who is under the age of 16. Many of these traits could be just considered normal adolescent traits. It isn't necessarily a sign of psychosis in adolescence. Things like risky behaviour, struggling with identity, being impulsive, they're all pretty normal teenage experiences. At 18 years old, Anakin's mother suddenly and tragically passes away. Immediately after this incident, he has a dissociative episode that involves harming others. It was also shortly after this incident that he has a whirlwind romance that after a few months of dating, he then gets married to that partner, and he chooses to hide this relationship from his closest relationships. Over the next 2 years, Anakin has increasingly paranoid thoughts about his wife's death. It's at this point that he recognizes that he needs support and sought out advice. Now, our man Yoda might be one of the wisest, most powerful beings in the universe, but he clearly has not been trained in the ways of mental health support. For this activity, I'm going to get you to watch a short clip, and I want you to take it with a pinch of salt, but it's about Anakin coming to Yoda in a moment of crisis. I'd like you to consider the mental health support model ALGEE. It's designed to be able to help you to support someone who is experiencing a mental health crisis. The A stands for assessing the risk of suicide or harm. The L is to listen non-judgmentally. The G is to give reassurance. The first E is to encourage a person to get appropriate professional help. And the second E is to encourage other support services that they might be able to engage with. I'd like you to reflect on Yoda's approach to this discussion. If he had realized he was supporting someone with psychosis, do you think he would have engaged in the same way, and what do you think he could have done better? I'd like you to put in the comments 1 point for what you think he did well and 1 point for one thing that you think he could have done better. So, let's watch.
These visions you have.
They're of pain, suffering, death.
Yourself you speak of, or someone you know?
Someone.
Close to you?
Yes.
Careful you must be when sensing the future, Anakin. The fear of loss is a path to the dark side.
I won't let these visions come true, Master Yoda.
Death is a natural part of life. Rejoice for those around you who transform into the Force. Mourn them, do not. Miss them, do not. Attachment leads to jealousy. The shadow of greed, that is.
What must I do, Master Yoda?
Train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose.
So one thing Yoda did well is he started by asking questions to better understand Anakin's experiences and listen to them non-judgmentally. So Yoda could have acknowledged that these visions felt true to Anakin, but by validating these episodes and dismissing their impact on what they meant to Anakin, it wasn't helpful for somebody who is experiencing dissociative episodes and visions. It's also really important to remind people that recovery or management of mental health illness is possible and there are helpful interventions. So let's recap some of the adversity that Anakin has faced to this point. He has been a slave, he has been separated from his family, he has lost a father figure, he has been adopted by a dogmatic religious cult, which we could also argue is some form of care system that he's been through. He's lost his mother. At the age of 19, he is secretly married to someone 5 years his senior and has become part of the military complex where he's fought many battles as a revered general. Actually, it wasn't long after this discussion with Yoda that Anakin began to have an obsessive fear about his wife's death, which led to a second dissociative episode. After this event, he continued voicing paranoid thoughts about his wife. In addition, he became paranoid that his friends were colluding to turn her against him, and he also started to indicate illusions of invincibility. Now, do we feel at this point that these are quite strong indications that he is experiencing psychosis? How many of these statements do you think Anakin would say is reflective of him?
I often feel empty. My emotions shift very quickly, and I often experience extreme sadness, anger, and anxiety. I'm constantly afraid that the people I care about will abandon me or leave me. I would describe most of my romantic relationships as intense, but unstable. The way I feel about the people in my life can dramatically change from one moment to the next, and I don't always understand why. I often do things that I know are dangerous or unhealthy, such as driving recklessly, having unsafe sex, binge drinking, or using drugs. When I'm feeling insecure in a relationship, I tend to lash out or make impulsive gestures to keep the other person close.
According to Broadcast Thought, Anakin presents 6 out of 9 indicators of a borderline personality disorder. Now consider this plot twist. George Lucas decides to change his films again, and in this new cut, Anakin receives early intervention support and gets professional help. Let's read this statement. I believe that psychotherapy would have helped Anakin and might have prevented the decline of his mental health. In the Star Wars universe, using the dark side of the Force could be considered similar to that of drug use. It feels really good when you use it, but it alters your consciousness and you know that you shouldn't do it. That's a statement by Eric Bry, who is a psychiatrist at the Toulouse University Hospital. So, what are some other supports alongside therapy that would be useful to Anakin to help him manage his psychosis? Here's 3 that I think are really key: having a good support network with connections to meaningful relationships like friends, and potentially medication as well. Although using this case study has been utilised with good intentions, for a bit of fun and creativity, and to hopefully make sure that the learning is rememberable, we need to consider the flip side as well. We have to be careful when explaining disorders of fictional villains, as they may educate people to draw comparisons between their loathed characters, and it also might run the risk of increasing mental health stigma. I've tried my best to get the tone of this right, and I've tried to be careful and responsible with how we present these comparisons. What we really don't want to happen is people with borderline personality disorders to be labelled as Darth Vaders. In fact, one of the patterns of behaviours that reoccurs in Anakin's case study that we often don't see reflective of the majority of people with psychosis is violent behaviour. People who experience psychosis are at much greater risk to themselves than they are to others. The way that mental health issues are portrayed in the media can lead to this being one of the most commonly feared aspects of psychosis, but it isn't reflective of the reality for most people who experience it. Can you think of any media influence that might have played a part in that? Leave your answers in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe. Catch you next time.